Hello, everyone. Wishing you all a wonderful day. Today, I will tell the next part of the story about Tu Diem and Tuan. Tuan secretly buried an old necklace in his garden just as his wife, Tu Diem, was about to give birth. The necklace wasn't just a memento. It was a gateway to a past Tuan had desperately tried to conceal for years. What was Tuan hiding? And would Tu Diem choose to forgive him or leave him when all the secrets were revealed? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of Tuan and Tu Diem's stories. Tu Diem sat by the window, one hand resting gently on her pregnant belly, her distant gaze suggesting she was listening to an invisible secret growing inside her. Morning sunlight washed over the small house with a falsely warm glow, unable to dissolve the heavy silence hanging between husband and wife. In the kitchen, Toan quietly prepared tea, each movement unnaturally slow, as if he were stretching time to avoid an unspoken decision. Every glance toward the backyard darkened his expression, his hand tightening unconsciously against the wooden counter. Tu Diem turned back and offered a soft smile, yet it never reached her eyes. They remained silent, each trapped within private thoughts, neither daring to break the fragile moment. Neither of them realized that this ordinary morning marked the beginning of buried secrets rising to the surface, and that soon, no one inside that house would be able to pretend peace still existed. The good news arrived suddenly, yet it brought none of the relief Tu Diem had imagined. She placed the ultrasound report on the table, her voice trembling with happiness as she shared that the baby was perfectly healthy. Toan looked up and forced a smile, but his eyes briefly avoided hers, as if he feared confronting something deeper than the joy before him. In that fleeting moment, his hand brushed against the pocket on his chest, where a cold, solid object rested silently. Tu Diem failed to notice, absorbed in dreams of the future, talking about a small nursery, about baby names she had whispered to herself through countless sleepless nights. Toan listened without responding, his thoughts slowly drifting to a distant place where old memories had never truly faded. The air in the room grew heavy, though neither dared to acknowledge it. The good news lay there, bright and fragile, yet between them, an invisible distance quietly formed. Tuan knew all too well that some things could not coexist with happiness, and he began to fear that the arrival of this child would awaken the secrets he had buried, precisely at a moment when he felt least prepared to face them. In the middle of the night, Tuan jolted awake as if someone had whispered his name in the darkness, cold sweat soaking his back. Tu Diem slept peacefully beside him, her steady breathing unaware that the man next to her was being crushed by his past. Tuan quietly slipped out of bed and opened an old drawer beneath the wooden cabinet. Under the dim yellow light, a tarnished silver necklace appeared, lying still as though it had been waiting to be seen. Its pendant bore a strange symbol, worn down by time, yet the memories bound to it had never faded. Tuan lifted the necklace, his hands trembling, his throat tightening as if suffocated. Old images flooded back, broken promises, and a disappearance that had never received a clear explanation. His reflection stared back from the mirror, filled with fear and regret. The necklace was not merely a keepsake. It was a cruel reminder of who Tuan once was and of a mistake he had spent years seeing buried. Dawn had yet to arrive. Mist blanketed the backyard, and each step he took felt like moving toward a place with no return. In his hands were a small shovel and the silver necklace, carefully wrapped in an old piece of cloth. Every strike into the soil tightened his chest, his breathing growing rapid, as if he were burying a part of himself alive. Damp earth clung to his hands, cold and heavy. When the hole was deep enough, Toan stopped and stared at the necklace one final time. In that moment, he remembered the woman's eyes from years ago, remembered all the words never spoken. Then he let go. The necklace dropped softly, yet the sound was enough to make him flinch. Toan hurriedly filled the hole, pressing the soil down as though afraid the past might surface at any second. When he finally stood up, his legs trembled, and only one thought remained in his mind. If buried deep enough, could guilt truly disappear? Or was it merely waiting for another day to return? Tu Diem woke with a strange emptiness when her hand reached across the bed and touched no one. The room remained silent, morning light filtering through the curtains, yet the stillness weighed heavily on her chest. Calling Toan's name brought no response, and she slowly stepped outside, her sense of unease growing stronger with every breath. As the back door opened, her eyes immediately fixed on a patch of freshly turned soil, dark brown against the otherwise even garden. Tu Diem froze, a chill running down her spine. She did not know what lay beneath it, but instinct warned her it was far from harmless. When Tuan returned inside, he startled at the sight of his wife staring at him, her expression torn between confusion and suspicion. He quickly explained, his voice faltering, that he had only been fixing the soil for planting. Tu Diem nodded and said nothing, yet doubt had already taken root in her heart. Throughout the day, the image of that disturbed soil refused to leave her mind. She began to realize that the man she had lived beside for years carried silences she had never been allowed to enter, and that realization frightened her more than any spoken lie ever could. Things took a turn for the worse that afternoon when a knock rang out, firm and unyielding. Tu Diem opened the door and was stunned to find herself facing a strange woman, tired, but with a chillingly cold gaze. The woman introduced herself in a low voice, saying she was looking for Toan. For some reason, Tu Diem felt her throat dry up. When Toan appeared behind her, his face instantly turned pale, as if he had just encountered a ghost from the past. The woman didn't beat around the bush. Her eyes swept across the house before settling on Tu Diem's pregnant belly, making the atmosphere heavy and suffocating. She said she had been looking for Toan for a long time, and there were unresolved issues. Tu Diem stood between them, not understanding what was happening, but each word from the stranger was like a needle piercing the fragile peace of her family. Tuan avoided Tu Diem's gaze. Tu Diem decided to question the woman, hoping for a clear explanation. The woman's voice was small and cold, each word slow and carefully considered. She revealed that she was the older sister of a pregnant woman who had disappeared years earlier, and that woman's surname was Toan. Tu Diem's heart tightened, her mind racing with a series of unspoken questions. The woman added that the only thing left of her sister was a silver necklace. Tu Diem was stunned, her hand unconsciously resting on her stomach. She understood that the life she believed to be safe was beginning to crumble. Her unborn child, her beloved husband, and the secrets never revealed were clashing violently. The woman bowed her head and left. Tu Diem could wait no longer as darkness settled over the backyard, suffocating her with every heartbeat. She appeared with a small shovel, moving slowly toward the strange patch of soil that lay like a silent challenge. Each strike made her hands tremble, not only from the weight of the earth but from the fear growing inside her. When the shovel hit something solid, she froze, her breath breaking apart. She knelt down, brushing away damp soil with her hands, and a silver necklace slowly emerged under the dim light. Her heart tightened, tears falling as she held the cold object. She did not yet know the full story, but instinct told her the necklace carried a past Toan had never shared. Sitting alone in the garden, Tu Diem clenched the necklace, sensing the fragile line between truth and lies. She knew that from this moment on, there was no turning back. What had been buried was now unearthed by her own hands, and the truth, no matter how painful, could never be hidden again. The confrontation happened that very night when Tu Diem placed the necklace on the table like a silent accusation. Tuan froze, his face turning pale as he realized everything was over. With no room left to deny, he lowered his head, his voice breaking as he confessed that years ago the woman had left in despair, leaving behind the necklace and a secret he was too cowardly to face. Tuan had not killed anyone, but his cowardice allowed a person to vanish without anyone searching. Tu Diem listened, each word cutting into her heart. She realized that silence could prove just as destructive as violence. Tuan cried for the first time since they had been together, sobbing like a child. Tu Diem stood still, tears falling, but they were no longer tears of weakness. She understood that this moment would decide everything, not Tuan's past, but the choices he made now, and how she chose to face the truth laid bare before her. The decision came in silence as Tu Diem stood alone by the window, one hand resting on her gently moving belly. Outside, the night sky was eerily calm, as if waiting for her answer. She thought of the child soon to be born, of the fragile future resting in her hands. She knew forgiveness would not erase the past, but running away would not bring peace either. When she turned back to Tuan, she saw a man filled with remorse, no longer the one who hid behind silence. Tu Diem spoke slowly, her voice steadier than she expected, saying that the truth must be faced, not buried. She did not promise to forget, nor did she promise it would be easy. But she chose to stay on the condition that Tuan take responsibility for what he had avoided. Tuan nodded, tears streaming down his face. In that moment, Tu Diem understood that her choice was not about Tuan's past, but about their child's future. And sometimes, the greatest courage lies not in leaving, but in staying and forcing the truth to live alongside you. The story closed on another morning as sunlight once again filled the familiar window. Tuan stood at the gate, handing the silver necklace to the woman from the past, his face calmer after countless sleepless nights. No more running, no more burying. Tu Diem stood behind him, one hand on her belly, silently witnessing the moment when the past was returned to where it belonged. As the gate closed, Tuan turned and held his wife's hand without hesitation. The small house remained the same, yet the air had changed. Secrets no longer lay underground, and the truth, though painful, had finally been named. Tu Diem felt a gentle kick from the child, a reminder that life always finds a way forward. She looked at Tuan, not with the innocence she once had, but with the clarity of someone who understood the weight of honesty. The road ahead would not be easy, but it would be real. And sometimes a new beginning does not come from forgetting the past, but from daring to face it, take responsibility, and move forward with